I'd like to thank you, Madam Chair, for being a co-author, as well as Senators Barr, Anderson, and Lang. Before us, we have a resolution, and I was contacted by the Fort Snelling Memorial Rifle Squad. We've got two fine veteran leaders of that organization here before us today. This resolution, the intention is to try to gather support from the Senate to communicate to people what these fine gentlemen and their colleagues are doing for our state and our country, and some needs they have. So with that, Madam Chair, I would like to introduce Lee Aragon and Dan Fisher to you, and they'll introduce themselves.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My
Good
name
morning
is Lee
and welcome
Aragon.
to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record.
What did she say?
Just say Madam Chair.
Madam Chair,
I'm Lee Aragon.
I'm Lee Aragon.
Thank you.
All right, gotcha. Before I start talking about the specifics of what we would like to accomplish here, I'd like to introduce Dan Fisher, who has been with the Memorial Rifle Squad for a number of years and can give you a brief history of where we've been and where we'd like to go. Dan?
Good morning, committee and Madam Chair. Thank you. Yes, I've been here before when Chuck Weger was a supporter of us in North St. Paul for a Veterans Park. And today I'm here as a support for the Fort Snelling Memorial Rifle Squad. I'm a 19-year member and a past commander of 2013. Our facilities that we use are substandard in our estimate. We have 25 members per day, 125 members tactical level for the entire week. And we do upwards of 60 funerals per week. We have a lot of statistics that have met with 99.9% approval by the public for what we do. However, getting the quarters to expand to meet that, we got a good cold splash of water in our face when COVID came, and we were distanced. We were told to lock down by the government. We came back, and now we have issues with packing 25 members into a small room with one bathroom and no other facilities. The members of our squad, we've seen the passing of World War II and Korea veterans, and we've picked up the step, the Vietnam era, and we're cresting now. We're starting to strongly recruit new members from Afghanistan, Iraq, peacetime, and the Gulf. And it gets hard when you can see that the facilities are not able to support us. So I'm here to support Lee's efforts. He's a project leader. He's been designated that way last year. Been working on it for about 3-4 years right now. And I'll go back to him.
Thank you, Dan. Our services are mandated by Public Law 106-65. That law says that every honorably discharged veteran will have full military honors. And those honors consist of the final salute, which involves the three loud rifle volleys, the playing of taps, and the presentation of the colors. If any of you have been out to Fort Snelling and witnessed this, you know how profound that ceremony is for the veteran and that family of the veteran. We have thus far done, since 1979, over 86,000 of those ceremonies. We do, as Dan mentioned, about 60 per week. We are housed in what I can refer to as a lean-to shed to the shed, the maintenance building. And we find that shed to be totally inadequate. So our purpose here is to get your support to build a better building for us, perhaps more so for the future, so that we can continue to provide those meaningful services to honorably discharged veterans who have served the country. With those 25 people that we house provide colors, rifles, presentations, and all of the rest of the factors that go into the ceremony. We believe that with a proper support from this state, we can perhaps get the VA to acknowledge that we need these facilities to continue our level of support for the veterans and their families. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you both for your testimony and being a part of a family whose father-in-law served in World War II and was honorably discharged and buried with full honors. I know how important your work is. Senator Drazkowski. Anything more from you?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I talked to Senator Champion earlier, and he shared with me that his brother is buried at Fort Snelling, and he witnessed the ceremonies that probably these gentlemen or their colleagues did, and he was very, very impressed. So that's really all we have for the resolution, Madam Chair.
Senator Barr?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to ask a couple of questions. Could you describe your lean-to just a little bit more? Because I know what I've heard. Does it have heat? Does it have air conditioning, restrooms, changing facilities? I mean, it gets to be sub-zero, and you guys, I have been to these funerals, military funerals, and in January, and I have seen the detachments and what they have to put up with, and so could you describe that just a little bit more, please?
With all due respect, Senator, I will describe one part of that facility. We have a bathroom that has a washroom, a toilet, and a urinal, and that's it. And we have female veterans, and we have male veterans, and we're all of an age that we require frequent use of that facility. So it's so inadequate, I can't even begin to tell you how terrible that is. During COVID, in fact, we had to bring in porta potties in order to facilitate our ability to do what we needed to do. And other part of that, we had to buy at our own expense a Connex box to store our various items that we need for our services, because we don't have enough space to house our uniforms, our rifles, our weapons, and our ammo, and all the rest of the things that we can do, much less eat with any sense of decency.
Senator Barr?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that description. And just as, I guess, a level of support, the least we can do to those offering the final salute to those who have served would be to give them a decent bathroom and heat and air conditioning for changing. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, are there other questions, comments? Senator Drazkowski, would you like to move your resolution?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
It's going to head to rules next, so.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, I move that we
Senate
adopt
resolution.
Senate Resolution 18 and refer it to the Rules Committee.
That would be the motion. Members, Senator Drazkowski has moved that we recommend to pass Senate Resolution 18 and that it be referred to the Committee on Rules. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, no. The motion is adopted.
Thank you, members.
Thank you, Madam
for your
Chairman.
service.
Madam
Thank you,
Chairman.
Senator Drazkowski. All right. Senator Frentz. Senate File 1959. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Nick Frentz from North Mankato. Very pleased to come before the State Government, Local Government Veterans Committee. Members, I'm here to present Senate File 1959 relating to duty disability, PTSD, and the men and women who serve our state in public safety. I have with me Ms. Lincheski, Madam Chair, in case there are questions. As you may know, members, on the agenda, this is the first of 3 bills I hope to present to you for passage. Senate File 1959 addresses changes in the way we care for the men and women who serve our state in public safety. first responders, police officers, firefighters. As many of you know, post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, has been a diagnosis that the state has been working to help members of public safety with. We understand it better, and this bill is one of our ways to provide further treatment for those men and women. Among the various changes in the bill, which we'll walk through, Madam Chair, are a 24-week treatment regimen. So we want to provide the best treatment for the men and women of public safety who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. This is treatment that will allow the members of public safety to remain on full salary and benefits at the time, remain an employee, and at the end of that, questions can be answered about whether a full duty disability is appropriate. That, of course, is partly a medical question to be informed for the plans. Second, with the increase in PTSD claims, the funds themselves, which serve all of our members of public safety, active members, retired members, and those on duty disability, and their funding status are important. Each of us hopes to retire someday. Each of us hopes that the funds are there to provide a proper retirement, and to some extent, parapolice and fire and MSRS have seen the funding status decrease as these increased claims have taken a toll. Finally, we have the issue of the equity between active members, retired members, members on duty disability, and the bill seeks to make changes there to try to preserve the equity between all those members, provide for duty disability members to continue to receive those payments, and make changes, including offsets to that. With that, Madam Chair, I would be happy to walk through the bill itself by article or whatever the committee thinks is most appropriate.
Thank you, Senator Frentz. I think it would be useful for you and Ms. Linczewski, in whichever way you'd like to go briefly through the proposal.
All right. Well, first, Madam Chair, I'd like to offer the A7 amendment.
Thank you, Senator Frentz. Members, we have before us the A7 amendment. I do know there is one person who would like to testify to this amendment and has requested to do so, Senator Frentz, if that's okay with you.
That certainly is. I've spoken with that member of the public, and members, the A7 amendment relates to certain issues with a health plan and the ability to negotiate it. I have spoken with this member, Madam Chair, and just for the record, I am not bringing an amendment before you on this issue, but I'm happy to have this addressed here. With that, Mr. Carlson.
Thank you, Senator Frentz, for the explanation, and we will take action on the amendment, but did want to get this testimony. And Mr. Carlson, welcome to the committee.
Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I'm Joel Carlson. I own a legal research and government affairs business here in St. Paul, and I'm here on behalf of the Minnesota Association for Justice. And I wanted to speak to the amendment, Madam Chair, because our association is not here to speak against the bill, but there's one provision in the amendment that we want to bring to your attention, which we think not only puts a thumb on the scale of justice, but actually a whole hand and maybe a boot. On the amendment, on line 3.11, it prohibits an officer from settling their health care benefits. And while we want those benefits to continue, the way the language is written, it is completely one-sided. Because what happens in these situations is oftentimes when the director makes a determination that disability is warranted, it is the employer that contests that requirement. And in this situation, the way this language is written, the employer can contest it, but the employee can't settle it. And so that is a significant burden on the employee and is an important point in 299A, which this section references, because you need to know that when these items are contested, it isn't like going to court where you can participate in the court freely and without charge. You have to pay. You split the costs of the Office of Administrative Hearings. And so the employee, to assert their rights, has to split the cost of the administrative law judge, which can run between $10,000 and $20,000. And just to assert your rights under this chapter, we think that that is a high burden. And so I'm asking Senator Frentz and the committee to consider removing that section. It was added on the floor without being vetted in committee. I think there are unintended consequences. It's not that we don't want these benefits to continue. The way this is set up is just unfair for the employee when a contest is made. And as we go through a new system, we hope these happen less frequently. but they're almost always contested, and this is an unfair provision, and we wanted to bring it to your attention. And Senator Drazkowski, I just have to tell you, my uncle is a member of the Rifle Corps. He's since passed away. He did over 10,000 services at Fort Snelling, and so thank you for that bill. Thank you, Madam Chair and members.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Carlson. I appreciate that. I serve on the Pension Commission with Senator Frentz and know that this proposal has been the work, the labor of a lot of people, and there are a lot of vested interests and a lot of stakeholders. So I spoke with Senator Frentz before we got started, and I know that this is a chief priority for him, and that he will do the work that to get this into the shape so that we can finally pass it on the floor. So with that, Senator Frentz, if you'd like to discuss the A7 amendment, and we can put it onto the bill.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, the A7 amendment is meant to prevent a member of the public safety community from being able to negotiate away their health benefits. The health benefit that's provided by the employers is not designed to do anything other than provide health care for that member. We have the same basic spirit of the provision in the workers' compensation realm. So if a worker in the private sector is injured, one of the things that the workers' comp division generally won't approve is that employee bargaining away their lifetime health care rights. So that's the same spirit. Having said that, Madam Chair, while this provision was included in the bill that passed the other body with, I think, 81 votes, so bipartisan, happy to continue that discussion, and do not mean with the A7 to put the employee at any kind of disadvantage. What we're doing here is trying to protect not only the employee, provide treatment for that member, but protect the funding status. So with that, I would ask members to support the A7 with the assurance that we'll continue to listen to all voices.
We have before us the A7. Are there questions? And all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed, say no. That motion is adopted. Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, before you is Senate File 1959. I'd like to start by thanking you for taking the time. This is the product of a great deal of work over the previous couple of years. In your packets, you have letters of support. The groups that are formally in support of this provision include a wide range of stakeholders, including NAMI, the Teamsters, Minnesota Association of Counties, the League of Minnesota Cities, the League of Small Cities, Minnesota Police and Peace Officer Association, Minnesota Professional Firefighters, the Minnesota Sheriff's Association, the Minnesota Police Chiefs, the Minnesota Fire Association, Metro Cities, Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, and those letters of support represent stakeholders who have been engaged in the process, not simply here before you saying, hey, we support this bill, but members, they have been involved for the better part of a year, working on the bill, advising us, and as you know, as a member of the Pension Commission, Madam Chair, the bill itself has undergone several revisions and to my eye improvements. With that, Madam Chair, just to walk through the bill, and again, I have Ms. Lincheski here, members. The bill's priorities include the new treatment requirements that I mentioned, reimbursement of the public employers. For the employers, cities, counties, reimbursement of the costs of the post-traumatic stress disorder. That is a growing concern of those of us in greater Minnesota for whom the costs of this sometimes fall in a smaller department. And a lifetime of medical benefits, for example, I think we estimated can be as much as $768,000 to a public safety budget. That's significant, and the smaller your community is, arguably the more significant. Provides for reimbursement of Department of Public Safety and para. This is a key concept, members. Pensions is about the funding status. You want to have the funding status to be sufficient to pay off the promises that we make. And it's a unique animal in this sense. The fund itself, in one case, para-police and fire, is really the property of the active members of the public safety community, of the retired members, of the duty disabled members. Each of them has a stake in it, and each of them has a stake in the funding status being robust. The lower the funding status, the more it puts at risk not only the promises that we've already made, but future benefits that we hope to provide. So in seeking equity amongst all those members, you have to consider that in some cases, a retired member may have a different priority than an active member. A 28-year-old firefighter has a different interest in the pension fund than a 75-year-old retiree. Those are things you have to balance. And I've been using this metaphor as we discuss this bill. We ask the men and women of public safety in their jobs as they're keeping us all safe to make tough choices, sometimes life and death choices. The public safety community has made tough choices in this bill, including choices about how to fund it. The total cost is $104 million, including choices about how the relationship of the active, retired, and duty disability community is treated, that it relates to the offsets that you'll hear more about. And those tough choices are the result of this bill, which I'm positive is good for the state as a whole. And with that, walking through the individual provisions briefly, Madam Chair, by article. The 24 weeks treatments. We want to help the men and women get the treatment, not just for their work in public safety, but for their lives as Minnesotans. We don't spend all our lives at work, and this treatment provision will require 24 weeks of treatment. Again, the members of the public safety community that require this treatment, which is a precondition to receiving duty disability, are going to get the best care that we can provide. They will receive full pay and remain an employee with full benefits while they're taking that treatment. At the end of the treatment, they will be assessed. Obviously, it is our hope that they would have a benefit of that treatment and be able to return to work in public safety. But if that's not possible, Madam Chair, there's a provision then to allow them to apply to parapolice and fire or MSRS for duty disability. We make changes to the duty disability benefits. That's the amount of money that when a member is deemed duty disabled. We make appropriations into that fund. Again, that's the funding status. You want the funding status to be robust, and you want it to make those promises and keep them. You want to have the fund be allowed to continue to provide benefits to the promises of the members that are not duty disabled. That's primarily the retired and active members. The changes are in section 15 to 20. I won't go through them individually, Madam Chair, but there are certain changes to the way the benefits are paid. Those are important not only to the members on duty disability now, but those that hopefully will be able to receive this protection. Section 29 relates to the offsets. I know there are members of our public safety community here to testify and here to comment. We are proud of those members, and they have concerns in this section. I want to give you my take on those concerns and remind the committee that the offset provisions in the bill are ones that have changed twice already, increasing the amount of money that post-disability employment can retain. Here's what that means. We provide a full disability pension for a member who's duty disabled. Same way in workers' comp. If you're disabled from your job, you can't do any work, you replace your income. We want those members to have that protection. There are members of the duty disability community, and you may have heard from some, who are able to go at work at other jobs despite that disability. That's a good thing. We want to provide flexibility for members of police and fire to go out and earn. However, that puts the interest of the fund in play as far as the active and retired members. So remember, you're looking to have it be fair to active, retired, and duty disabled. What Section 29 does is change the offsets so that depending on how much what we call reemployment earnings that member of the duty disability committee earns, they have to credit back to the plan a certain amount. And I would put it this way. In workers' comp, there is a simple offset. If you are disabled from your job, but you're able to earn money in some other way, your workers' comp benefits are reduced by the amount you earn. Makes sense, right? In duty disability, the offsets partially return those extra earnings to the fund to help preserve the integrity of the fund. And again, Madam Chair, I can go through more detail if you want, but that is the spirit of what's going on. If you are a member of the Minnesota Community of Public Safety who's already out on duty disability, this amounts to a change that reduces your ability to hang on your post-disability earnings. Our target, as you know, Madam Chair, in pensions was a one-time target, so we did not have ongoing funding. You may hear suggestions about other ways we could have spent money. I'll leave that for those discussions in the Finance Committee. There are requirements of the employer that I think are worth mentioning, Madam Chair. So the employers, cities and the counties, and again, Minnesota counties, Minnesota cities are supportive of the bill. However, for them to get the reimbursement, they must comply with certain wellness and record-keeping requirements. This is important. If your city employs a firefighter and they want to be reimbursed for the money they're spending, they have to provide certain wellness training. In other words, they have to join us in the effort to help these Minnesotans deal with PTSD. They also have to keep certain records that allow us to continue to try to improve the way we care for this group of Minnesota's public safety community that are disabled. So it's not simply an amount of money that goes to cities and counties and says, here you go. It's a requirement that they help us and join us in the work along the way. Finally, there are certain changes in the numbers, Madam Chair. I have them in the brief, happy to talk about them, but that is, in my opinion, roughly the summary that I'd want the members to have on the bill, and happy to have questions answered. Ms. Linczewski, of course, is here. Thank you for the opportunity to present Senate File 1959 to you.
Thank you, Senator Frentz. Members, I want to call to our attention, Senator Fateh is online, and when it's coming time to Zoom, we'll make sure that he announces himself in the city he's in. We have a number of people who want to testify to this proposal. Hey, Senator Fateh, it's good to see you, by the way. A number of people want to testify, so should we do the testimony? I think we should do the testimony first and then come back to Senator Frentz and Ms. Linczewski for questions. All right, seeing no objections, then I'm going to start calling people up. We asked testifiers to limit their comments to 2 minutes. We are going to time that just because we're trying to manage our time, not to shortchange anybody. So you may hear a little bit of an alarm. That's your signal that you've got to wrap up. And then I'll nudge you along if you're not wrapping up, just so you know. In polite terms, we're going to try and hold you to that 2 minutes. And I would invite first up Kathleen Gomez and Danielle, I think it's Wagi, to come up to the table. Introduce yourselves for the record. Begin your testimony. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
My name is Kathleen Gomez. I'm from Rogers, Minnesota. I'm an attorney, and I'm a duty-disabled police officer. The definition of duty disabled is different than any other disability, and it applies to members of the police and fire plan, the correctional plan under para, and it's different from members of the coordinated plan. It's also different from work comp. It means disabling condition that makes it impossible for the employee to perform the normal duties of their job, and the disabling condition occurred during inherently dangerous activities. Many of us were involved in shootings, car crashes, fights, and can no longer do the job. I'm going to ask you to take a look at line 3513, paragraph C of this bill. This reapplication process, this is an application for a continuation of disability benefits, the paradisability benefits. It's nothing new. It's not a change. And according to para, it codifies their current practice. But now under this bill, what it will do is trigger a different computation of benefits. So even though nothing is new, nothing has changed, there is a computation of benefit changes. And I believe this is a retroactive application of a different benefit and a lesser benefit. The problem with that is that the Minnesota State Supreme Court has already had case law on similar situations. If we look at the Christensen versus Minneapolis Municipal Employees Retirement Board, this is a landmark decision. And what it said, Minnesota Supreme Court declared that the retroactive changes of benefits violates Section 11.1 of the Minnesota State Constitution, which states that no law impairing the obligation of contracts shall be passed, and implicates the doctrine of promissory estoppel. A pension is a promise, and the doctrine of promissory estoppel says that if a promise is made, the promise should be upheld. By changing this benefit for members who have already begun to receive the benefit, I believe this is a retroactive application that does violate this case law. It's also going to cause problems down the line, especially in terms of divorce, when we've already divided this benefit.
Thank you so much for your testimony, Ms. Gomez. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everybody. My name is Danielle Wagi, and I'm a duty-disabled first responder. I was a police officer for almost 10 years and retired due to post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD. I was a decorated officer with many awards, Officer of the Year Award, Police Union President, Crime Scene Technician, Detective, and several others. With that being said, I love my job. I was born with a servant's heart and found my calling in the field of law enforcement. In 2019, my life came crashing down. When I thought our small family of 3 kids under 2 had enough, in 2021, my husband was also injured in the line of duty and was forced to retire. One of the things that I want to express to you is that the acronym of PTSD isn't just a cop-out or a slang term. It is a real and horrific debilitating diagnosis. It's nightmares, night sweats, suicide attempts, depression, anxiety, and more. I would do anything to go back to the life I lived before, but that is not possible. PTSD is not curable. Does this bill have good intentions behind it? Yes. Mental health care for our heroes should be at the forefront and is well overdue. However, the fact that this is being pushed as retroactive is not only breaching contracts with myself and hundreds of other first responders, but downright hurtful and misguided. When my husband and I left, we both lost 40% of our income. To say that was not catastrophic would be a misunderstanding. Through therapy, we're finally able to get our head above water as we both work part-time jobs to make ends meet. He at a church and I at a nonprofit organization. According to the calculations provided, we make, if this bill passes, my family will go from paying approximately $100 to para per year to just shy of $30,000. I want you to think how your family would survive that loss of income for us. That means we'd lose our house and have to remove our children from their current school and force us back into financial crisis alike when we left our job. The amount of stress that this bill has caused our family is insurmountable. Lastly, I want to refer to the oath of office that is taken as a Minnesota State Senator. The term faithfully in the context of the oath of office for the state of Minnesota means that you, the senator, is pledging to perform your duties with loyalty, honesty, and integrity. In other words, you are promising to carry out your responsibilities in good faith with a sincere intention to serve the public interest and uphold the principles of the Constitution. To act faithfully as a senator means to always act in the best interest of the people you represent, to follow the law and Constitution, to make decisions based on sound judgment and evidence, and to be accountable for your actions.
Thank you.
The term faithfully
Ms.
emphasizes.
Waggy, thank you.
Can I
Please-
do just one
please-
more at the end?
please, Yep, you've passed your 2 minutes, so please
Wrap up? Okay. We were promised this pension and the stipulations around it. Please vote no, remove the retroactive verbiage of this bill, and act out your faithful obligation not only to the heroes that protected all of you and your families, but also to us Minnesota State residents.
Thank you, Ms. Waggy.
Thank you.
Thank you both for your testimony. Up next is Wendy Wolf, and following that, Bridget Bender. Thank you for your patience with me as I manage our time. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Wendy Wolf, and I am the spouse of Sergeant Dan Wolf, who was critically injured in the line of duty in 2005. We found out in 2007 that there's a loophole in pension and work comp law that leaves officers who are unable to work at all as a result of their injury getting the least help of anybody. And I have been at the legislature now for 15 years trying to fix that hole so that nobody else falls through that hole. And thank you to Senator Jasinski. Unfortunately, he seems to have stepped out at the moment, but he and Representative Koznick pushed legislation to require a study by PARA and the Department of Labor and Industry to look at the fairness of the benefits for people who are injured in the line of duty. And miracle of all miracles, as a result of that study, there is large consensus on that, number one, there is a problem, and number two, how to fix that problem, which is amazing. That doesn't usually happen around here. The solution to the problem is increasing the pension for people who are duty disabled but unable to work in any job to 99%. I will keep working on this as long as I have to, because I don't want any family to go through the hell that my family went through. But I implore you to please pass at least that section of the bill and get it across the finish line to the governor's desk so that the people who have lost everything in the line of duty get the support that they deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony, and please thank Officer Wolf for his service. Grateful that you're here. Senator Frentz.
Madam Chair, I want to thank all the testifiers for coming. Just to point out, the bill does increase the benefit from 60 to 99%. I didn't mention that in my remarks because that's frankly not something that anyone is really contesting. We consider it a good thing. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Bridget, and I'm a fire captain and EMT in Minneapolis. I'm also a licensed psychotherapist, a certified MenFire peer supporter, and a first-year PhD student studying occupational injury prevention research, specializing in PTSD prevention for first responders. I am also suffering from duty-related cancer and PTSD disabilities. And I'm sorry.
Ms. Bender,
Thank you, Tom.
the work that we do in this body means a lot to people, and it is often difficult work. And you are not the only person who has been in a room like this, including me, who has to take a moment. And it
Okay,
is,
thank you.
it's normal, and we're glad that you're here.
Thank you.
Yep.
I've recently accepted that I will be unable to return to my job. And it's a job that I've loved for over 22 years, my entire adult life. This bill targets disabled first responders who cannot fight back, largely due to the very nature of our disabilities. There's a reason there are not more people speaking against this. And it's not because we don't care or this isn't affecting us. It's because this is requiring a lot of strength and bravery. I ran into burning buildings. I've done amazing things, and this is the scariest thing I've ever done, and it's requiring the most bravery. We need your help. Targeting people who can't fight back is bullying. And we're already a marginalized group among first responders. The discussions around this bill, some of the discussions around this bill have further alienated us. Some of the stakeholders and lawmakers have suggested massive hypothetical fraud and told anecdotal stories of bad actors with no evidence to back it up. Meanwhile, these accusations have created a scarcity mindset in the para membership and pitted active duty members against disabled pensioners, further alienating us and causing more undue suffering and more stigma, more shame. Disability is not a choice or a phase that will pass. It is a life-altering tragedy. These weren't just jobs to us. If anything, we need help accepting when it's time to go, and we've become a huge liability to everybody around us. This bill will prolong the service of members who are no longer fit for duty and make recruitment efforts even harder than they already are. It's dangerous. Breaking your promises to us will compromise your integrity and damage the trust that we have in our pension system. There are other solutions that can reinforce the integrity of the pension fund that don't put the burden on us when we receive none of the benefit of the new legislation, which is, there are parts of it that are wonderful and long overdue. Please vote no to this and find other solutions. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony and for your service.
Thank you.
Up next is Chuck Aldine, and then Chuck Gollop.
Thank you for coming, folks.
Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Chuck Aldine, and I too am a duty-disabled first responder. I know our time is limited, so I wanted to cut to the chase and speak to the issue of the offsets, which I think is why many of us are here and why many of your inboxes, voicemail boxes are probably full. I've heard the term stakeholder used probably more than I care to count in this entire debate. I think it's important to understand what these offsets will not do. They will not put money back into the hands of the cities and the municipalities that are expressing concerns over continuing healthcare costs. It's not going to put money back into the hands of the League of Minnesota Cities or the insurers who are struggling to pay workers' comp claims. It's not going to give money to MPPOA or the Chiefs of Police or the Sheriff's Association. And finally, PARA has said, as well as the chief author of this legislation in the House just 2 weeks ago in a committee hearing, that these offsets were not intended to, nor are they projected to, recoup any significant money to the PARA fund. The only consequence, and I assure you that these consequences are, they're devastating, they're tangible, they're quantifiable, is to harm hundreds of Minnesota families. I think my time here is short, so if I could just finish with one thought. In this roller coaster last month and a half, something that I've kind of keep coming back on is my true shock that something like this is happening in Minnesota. As progressive and labor-focused as we are, I'm truly surprised that we're even having this conversation. So I would ask, beg, implore, do something here, today, right now, and stop it from happening. And help restore the shaken trust that so many of us had in a state that we sacrificed so much for. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Gallup, welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you. My name is Chuck Gallup. I'm a retired Bloomington Police Sergeant. I retired after 21 years of PERA pension contributions. I broke 13 bones in one incident, and on the second incident where I broke my 14th bone, my body said it was time to quit. So I retired, as we call, old school. This has been happening for 2 years, unbeknownst to us. This has been a shock. When everyone lists the stakeholders that were involved, I hope you're all looking that there was not one representative that is a retired police officer on disability that was involved. There was one meeting that involved mental health. I'm told that I'm shocked if that had any impetus in what happened moving forward. They were never talked to again. Obviously, they have a huge component to this bill. By the testimony I've listened to, this bill has had 20 amendments. I'm a newbie to this process in my fancy volunteer position as a volunteer legislator or whatever you want to call me. This is new to me, but I do know that 20 amendments is a shockingly huge amount. Representative Hur was talking about all the items that were moved to the parking lot. I hope in your line item budget that you've budgeted for valet parking in that parking lot, because there are a lot of parking lot items that need to be visited. I'm hoping that this group of retired first responders that are gutted by this bill, to some extent, are going to be represented, because we have been completely unrepresented in this process. We've been unheard. You've heard from members that are talking about losing $35,000 next year. I know you all make $52,000. I implore you, if I told you today that as of today, on January 1st, you were going to take $52,000, or let's say $35,000 out of your budget, I think that would make some pretty dramatic shifts in your plans. Senator Frentz and I have talked. The latest number now is that removing the retroactivity to this bill would put $1.6 million back in the PERA budget every year. I know I'm short on time here. That's a drop in the bucket to the numbers we're throwing out there. That will affect each member dramatically, and that money is there. Let's look at that, and please, let's include the true stakeholders in this.
Thank you, Mr.
for your
Gallup.
time.
Thank you for your testimony. Next is Chris Stewart, and then we'll hear from Reed LeBeau. Welcome to the committee, Mr. Stewart. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Madam Chair, member of the committee, my name is Chris Stewart. I am a medically disabled Minneapolis Police Sergeant. We've been told that our stories don't matter, that our injuries don't matter, and that how this legislation is going to affect us does not matter. That's disgraceful. The only thing that matters is the numbers. Well, let's talk about the numbers then. According to PERA's latest financial report from June of 2022, they were estimated to lose 6% or $1.7 billion due to the stock market. If you equate that out, that means that the police and fire fund for PERA is roughly $28 billion. Before the influx of individuals claiming duty disability, in 2020, PERA's income offset or ratio was 99.6. Today, it's 99.1. According to PERA's latest financial report from last year, they were 93.7% funded, the best they've been in over 20-plus years. At that time, there was 807 individuals collecting duty disability under the age of 55. Today, there is 877. So it riddled me this: how are 70 additional individuals collecting duty disability over 11 months bringing down a fund that is worth $28 billion? Now, the average first responder collecting duty disability is collecting $54,000 a year. These wages never change. We do not get promotions. We do not get raises. If you equate this out again, this equates out to 0.2% of PERA's total funds, not the projected 4% that they're saying. When it comes to these offsets, These offsets require some first responders to work for free on both the front and the backside. Our Supreme Court stated that prisoners in this country cannot work for free, but yet we got a legislative body and a government institution in Minnesota that will be forcing injured first responders to work for free. How is this acceptable? It should not be. Even if these offsets do take place, PARA has stated that it will only recoup $1.6 million back into the fund. So again, if this fund or if these offsets aren't supposed to bring any significant amount of money back into the fund, then why are they pushing this legislation? I'll tell you why. This is 100% punitive. If it wasn't, they wouldn't be pushing this retroactivity.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Mr.
Thank you,
Stewart,
sir.
and for your service. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Reed LeBeau, and I represent the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association. We're here in support of the bill. We'd like to thank Senator Frentz and all the stakeholders for all the work that they put into this, really years of work to get to the point that we're at today. As has been mentioned, there are really two parts of this bill, and the main impetus for the reason that the MPPOA supports this bill is the treatment provision. Right now, under current law, there is no requirement for any treatment for somebody that is claiming PTSD. This change to the law now puts in 24 weeks of treatment that will be available. And I need not convince anybody on this committee that we're at a critical juncture in this state with public safety. And our main goal in making sure that these officers receive treatment is we need them back. We need them back to work. We need them back in the squad car. And that is the main reason why we are so supportive of this bill. We do support the recommendations of PARA to make sure that the pension fund stays solvent. And we appreciate all the work by Senator Frentz and all of the stakeholders that have participated in this process. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LeBeau.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Dennis Genero, who is testifying remotely. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, good morning. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Thank you. My name is Dennis Jenner, and I have served for the past 12 years as Carleton County's coordinator and human resources director. Prior to that, I spent 15 years working with law enforcement as an assistant county attorney in Hennepin, Olmsted, and Carleton counties. Carleton County is located in northeastern Minnesota. It is home to approximately 36,000 citizens. We have an active sheriff's office with approximately 25 licensed peace officers and 35 additional staff. The issue of PTSD in law enforcement is not a new issue, nor is it one that Carleton County is immune from. In the past 4 years, our county's experienced an alarming number of deputies leaving law enforcement due to PTSD. While these losses have an impact on our budget as well as our ability to fully manage our community safety needs, the impact of the deputy leaving, as well as those who remain behind, is what concerns me and others in our county the most. There is no doubt that our law enforcement professionals are public servants who frequently experience trauma that would set any person back. The fact that we are finally realizing the importance of mental health treatment, peer group support, and employee assistance programs is absolute necessities. In this trying field is the right thing to do. I'm also appreciative that the state is recognizing that the cost of public safety today needs to be a shared commitment and not one that relies solely on local tax bases. Increasingly so, our sheriff's offices and other law enforcement agencies are coordinating more and more throughout the region to respond to major workforce and resource shortages. City departments are going away, counties are assuming more responsibilities, and are being called to assist with duties and emergencies outside their county jurisdictions. Members, simply put, the needs continue to be great and the workforce shortages continue to grow. While that trend is bad for folks like me who try to budget and prepare for community needs, it's far greater for individuals who show up day in and day out in order to continue to serve and protect the public. Those individuals are increasingly asked to do more with less, and that cannot continue. We need to have their backs when they have a bad day, when they're dealing with trauma or exhaustion, and we need to let them know that we want them to be able to continue their honorable and brave service. For all those reasons, Carleton County and the Association of Minnesota Counties is grateful for Senator Frentz and others who have brought this bill forward, and we support it. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Vadnais, Scott Vadnais, who's also with us remotely, please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Scott Badness. I'm president of the Minnesota Professional Firefighters. I represent over 46 locals from all corners of the state, over 2,000 firefighters, paramedics, EMTs, dispatchers. I've been a firefighter myself for over 33 years. I'm here to speak in favor of Senate File 1959. I've been involved with this bill for over 2 years. I have invested hundreds of hours ensuring my members' interests are represented. From the beginning, my top priority was ensuring our members would receive the help they deserved. Our goal has been to craft a system that gets my members struggling with the effects of PTSD the help they need fast and gives them the time that they need to get healthy. This includes ensuring they will not need to worry about financial losses or losing their job. The current system has no pathway back to work. The workers' comp system denies nearly all claims. This burdens my members to use their accrued time off to keep the paycheck and job while they're trying to get healthy. When they run out of vacation, sick, PTO time, the only path they currently have is to file for a duty disability through PARA. This bill will fix that. It will help the employees. It will help the employers. It has been a priority to keep all of my members' interests in mind. I must make sure that everyone in the pension system, whether it be an active member, duty disabled member, or those who are already retired, has an opportunity to collect a pension. The pension system cannot continue this path. Active members are already paying 11.8% of their paychecks into the system. So I can't go to my members and ask them for more. It's simply not fair. Yes, there are proposed changes to the pension system. The facts are that anyone with a duty disability will get the 60% tax-free pension. They will still get their health care insurance until they turn 65. They can still go out and get another job if they choose to. What will change is that first and foremost, we will get these people the help they need. We may even get them back on the jobs that they love. So we've worked extremely hard with this large stakeholder group. This bill will protect everyone, the employees, the employers, and all the retirees. I want to thank Senator Frentz for his work on this, and thank you for your time and consideration of Senate File 1959.
Thank you for your testimony. And with us is Chief John Swenson from Lino Lakes. Please welcome to the committee. Introduce yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is John Swenson. I'm the Public Safety Director for the City of Lino Lakes. And I'm here testifying on behalf of the Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association. I would like to start out by thanking Senator Frentz, Senator Dibble, and Senator Hawj for their work on this vitally important legislation. I have had the honor and privilege of serving as a police officer for 30 years in the communities of Minneapolis, White Bear Lake, and Lino Lakes. And I have seen the toll that this profession can have on police officers and firefighters. I know that this legislation will help police officers and firefighters stay healthy and continue to serve in our honorable profession. We have worked very hard with all these stakeholders over the last 2 years to address mental health injuries of our first responders. Through our work, we learned from mental health experts that mental health injuries are highly treatable, particularly post-traumatic stress disorder. We believe we provide treatment to our first responders who sustain physical injuries. We have to provide treatment to our first responders that sustain mental health injuries, and this legislation will do that. We believe there is a role for the state in partnering with employers and employees to address the trends and costs pertaining to post-traumatic stress disorder duty disability claims. Senate File 1959 requires public safety entities to provide training and resources to prevent mental health injuries and funds treatment for first responders who suffer from mental health injuries. The bill requires treatment for injured first responders prior to duty disability approval by PERA and provides state funding to keep employees on the payroll while they are being treated, as well as funding for the mandate that requires employers to continue health insurance benefits for first responders approved for a duty disability. The full reimbursement to cities contained in Senate File 1959 is a critical element to this bill and key to our support. We ask that the members of this committee support this important legislation. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Chief Swenson, and thank you for your service.
Very much.
That concludes the testimony that I have on the list. And before we go to member questions, I'd like Andrew Erickson, our fiscal analyst, to just go through the fiscal note for us. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The fiscal note is fairly extensive, and so I won't touch on every part of it. What I would note is that most of the departments that are on the note have employees who would be affected by the contents of the bill and are therefore subject to the reimbursement requirements under the bill. So a lot of it is we have an expense, and then there's a reimbursement that comes back. There are administrative costs related to the Department of Public Safety and then to the Minnesota State Retirement System and the Public Employees Retirement Association, which are under this committee's jurisdiction. Rather than itemizing what all of those costs are, because that's not how the bill ends up funding the work, I think it's most useful to turn to the bill on pages 36 and 37, which is where the transfers and appropriations are. In section 27, you will see that there is $1 million that is transferred from the general fund into the MSRS psychological condition treatment account and $3 million that is transferred to para in the same section there. I am seeing that in paragraph C, it says this is a one-time transfer. It might be appropriate to entertain a motion to change that to these are one-time transfers for clarity, so it doesn't just apply to one of those or the other. On page 37, you'll see the bulk of the money that is going out in this bill, and it is a $100 million one-time transfer in fiscal 2024 with three clauses describing what that $100 million can be used for. And those include the administrative costs of the Department of Public Safety, which I described in reference to the fiscal note, to cover administrative costs of MSRS and para, and 3, to fund reimbursements of public employees, which is the bulk of that work. The administrative costs are because they are not eligible costs to be paid out of the pension funds that the associations themselves operate. And that, Madam Chair, I think is the fiscal impact of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. I am looking at Ms. Linczewski and Senator Frentz for a signal about the potential oral amendment that would add some clarity to the bottom of page 36, line 36.29, changing this is a one-time transfer to these are one-time transfers.
Madam Chair, I would certainly consider that a friendly oral amendment.
All right, then Senator Mitchell moves an oral amendment on page 36. It would be line 36.29, and we would strike line C. After C, we would strike, this is a one-time transfer, and insert, these are one-time transfers. And I'm going to turn to council to make sure that I've got that right.
Madam Chair and members, yes, that is right. On line, page 36, line 29, delete everything after the C and insert, these are one-time transfers, period.
Questions, members?
Madam Chair,
Senator Anderson.
could she speak a little louder on that? I didn't quite get it all.
We can repeat that for you, Senator
Thank you.
Anderson.
Madam Chair and members, the amendment would be on page 36, line 19, delete everything after the close parens and insert, these are one-time transfers, period.
Seeing no questions, all those in favor, please say aye. And those opposed, say nay, and that motion is adopted. All right, members, do you have questions for Senator Frentz or Ms. Linczewski? Senator McQuaid.
Madam Chair, I just want to, I think council said it was line 36.19, but I think it's 36.29. For the record, I just want to state that.
Thank you. All right, then. Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members. Our work,
Excuse me. Senator McQuaid? I asked if people had questions and didn't see any response. Members, do you have questions? Senator McQuaid?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just thinking through our mental health care system right now, and
24 weeks of treatment, has there been a body identified, or clinics identified, or health professionals identified who are able to increase their caseload to take, I don't know how many people this affects, to take that number of people that this affects? Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Makewaid. We're not taking any action in this bill to expand the number of mental health care professionals available to treat these Minnesotans, although, as you know, other bills moving through the legislature do have some of that. We're simply identifying a group of licensed professionals that would be able to provide this treatment, and so your point is well taken. We could use more help. I think help is on the way, Madam Chair, but not in this bill.
Senator McQuaid, thank you, Madam Chair, and maybe that gets to my first part of the question, and I probably have it in my paperwork here, but what is the estimated number of people who have mental health injuries that would be impacted by this bill? Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Makewaid. I think we have 700 right now that are out on duty disability. I don't have that specific number, but happy to provide that. Mr. Lemeau may know that MPPOA number, and there was an increase noted around the last 3 years, although I'm glad to report that is declining. And our hope is that with the treatment parameters, we'll increase the number of members of public safety who are able to return to their jobs, which of course is the goal of the treatment.
Senator McQuaid. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I did have a chance to have a lengthy meeting about it, so I understand that that about 100% of claims that are submitted through this are approved. My question is, of people who go on duty disability, how many or percentage-wise come off, and at what point does that happen? Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Senator Makewaid. I think we saw 97% approval testified to for the initial applications. As has been testified in other committees, PARA was not able to keep up the reapplication check-ins during COVID, although I believe they feel they are now. I don't know that there's a specific percentage that are then returned to duty against their will, but the bill does contain a requirement that there would be a revisiting that would require essentially a note from a doctor or mental health care professional. And I guess one of our questions is, if we're able to provide 24 weeks of treatment, won't that be good news for that Minnesotan as well as for the department that they're able to return to? But I don't have a specific goal that we're looking for, hopefully a big number.
Senator McQuaid. Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to be clear, I think my question was more about, PTSD can be treatable, and I'm wondering currently folks who are out on mental health, and it's not just PTSD, but who are out on mental health injury on their own, go through treatment, and on their own are certified able to come back either to part-time duty or full-time duty. Do we know those? We don't know those numbers? Okay.
Madam Chair, Senator Makewaid,
Senator Frentz.
I do not have any specific. Of course, each department may keep its own information, and one of the requirements of the bill in order for cities to be reimbursed is to keep records that would allow us to learn more about it. What that'll show, I'm a little bit less confident testifying to.
Thank you. Senator McQuaid. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll just end with this. I mean, this bill feels complex and nuanced, and I really just want to not lose the voices who sat in front of us. It is hard for people in general to talk about mental health, and so having people come here and talk about that. As a disability justice advocate, I'm having feelings about mandating a certain amount of time for treatment and mandating that people go into treatment. I also am just really clear that we talk a lot about policing, and oftentimes we focus on officers, individual officers, but it's a system, and what they deal with is also systems or lack thereof. And so all of the things that officers see in our communities are things that we have not dealt with. When they enter domestic violence situations with people who have guns, that's because we have not dealt with that. When they see people who are dying from overdoses in the street, that's because we have not directly addressed substance use disorder, and so on and so forth. And so in this, what I see, the increase of people who are out with mental health injuries, with PTSD, I see an indictment of our work or lack thereof. And I know that there has been a lot of conversation about the spending of the surplus. I really do believe that the spending of the surplus is to address the things that officers and firefighters and law enforcement see in our community so that they're not going out on mental health disability. And so I'm hoping that kind of the holistic approach is going to be able to take care of that. But I do a lot of the officers who are affected by this live in my community, and I've heard a lot of their stories, and I just want people to know that they are heard, and that this is not like that's why I was surprised we were done. I want people to know that this was not just like okay, we passed the bill and we move on, because people came forward to share really, really heartbreaking stories. So I'm a little concerned about our already stretched mental health care system and folks being able to find the treatment and requiring people to have treatment. But I know that a lot of folks worked on this, and I think it's an important piece to putting back together some of the system. So I'll be supporting it as it moves out of committee, but I do have some complex feelings about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator McQuaid, and the questions are, and the comments are really important, and that's our work here today. So, Senator Mitchell has a question.
Comment and a question. So not to diminish in any way what Senator McQuaid just said, I come from a military background, and I think there's a lot of similarities in what people see and having PTSD cases. And I've worked both as an advocate to friends who have had PTSD in the military, and now as a commander working with people that have PTSD. And I personally like the fact that we're adding in treatment, because I think some of these organizations have a culture where you don't do that. There's still a stigma against getting mental health treatment. And if it's just something like, yeah, we're just doing that now, I think it kind of removes some of that stigma for some people to actually say that they have that issue, and then treatment's going to be a thing. I would just say to the membership groups out there that, I think 24 months is a great start, but a lot of times what we try and do in the military is change a person's duty so that they have something that, where there's no trauma, but they can still retain their job if it's possible. I know that's not always possible, because I've personally seen people struggling with PTSD where it took a couple years of therapy and finding the right medication and whatever else. But if we really hung on to that person and worked with them, sometimes it took longer, but then we were able to retain that person. So I think this is a wonderful, good start. I would just say to the police and fire organizations out there, when you're kind of able to retain a person in a way, sometimes, then you can work through that in a way that they can still be a productive member. And then Senator Frentz, you and I talked yesterday about the financial piece that for some members, this sudden change was going to be a large chunk that I think maybe should at least be stretched out over a couple years if they're going to be losing, for some people on a tight budget, even $1,000 a year is a huge, huge thing. Or if you're a higher salary, this could be as much as, I think the fiscal analyst told me the average was going to be $17,000 as a loss, but that maybe we could still keep working on making sure this wasn't a sudden change for the people already under the program, that it was maybe a little bit more of a gradual so that people had time to work on their finances. So I'm just asking for a commitment from you that we'll keep kind of working on that aspect as this continues along.
Senator
Sorry.
Frentz.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Mitchell. First of all, thank you for drawing attention to the question that we're all asking, which is how to best empower this member of our public safety community to make choices about treatment, about retirement, about the duty disability benefits. And thanks, Senator McQuaid. I'm totally with you. Let's try to make less reasons for people to suffer from this. And I think there's a lot of things we can do outside of this committee. To your question about the offsets, Senator Mitchell, we did talk yesterday. I'm open-minded to anything that the body thinks is the right move for this. A couple points of comparison on the offsets, because what I was trying to say is for certain members of the duty disabled community, these changes would mean they will keep less if their reemployment earnings stay the same. So just as an example, members, this is where you may be saying, if these members of the duty disability community have concerns about this, why is it that MPPOA, the professional firefighters, the sheriffs, the chief are in support of the bill? And it has to do with this question of equity amongst active, retired, and duty disability. And so just briefly, Madam Chair, Here's an example of the change and how it would affect those and what income level they're at. Take a 35-year-old who's on duty disability who had 10 years of service credit, so sort of in the prime of their career, suffer from PTSD, disabled. The offsets in the bill for someone who earned an extra $50,000. The duty disability credit is $60,000. Keep in mind it is tax-free, meant to represent about the same take-home as someone earning $90,000 or $100,000. So they earn another $50,000. The offset would mean that they surrender about $10,000 from where they are now. So someone who is earning an additional $50,000, which would be taxed, combined income then in the area of $150,000. This bill would say your offset is about $10,000 less than you would get if the bill didn't pass, for context. However, in the second offset addresses those that have a more significant reemployment income. And for someone who is in that same age category, you still get the $60,000 tax-free, but if you're in an additional $100,000, so someone whose income is in the neighborhood of $100,000 over and above, then the offset, number one, is about $5,500, and the second offset's $47,500. So from a mathematical standpoint, Senator Mitchell, that's what we were talking about yesterday. The reason I mentioned the context is if a Minnesotan goes out on duty disability, receives the disability pension, 60 tax-free, and is able to earn another $100,000 in reemployment, first of all, I'm glad for that Minnesotan to be able to do that at whatever they like and are good at. That's where the offset is the largest amount in dollars, and that's where I would suggest that the active members and the retired members are saying, if you're out on duty disability but have an additional income of $100,000 more dollars, then we'd like to have a little bit more of a chunk for parapolice and fire to help not deplete it. Sorry, Madam Chair, that's a little longer, but I'm happy to continue those conversations, Senator Mitchell.
Senator Mitchell.
And I completely understand and I agree, but I know some members just heard that this bill was going forward within the last month or two. And while, everyone's recommended to live beneath their means, some people budget to their means. So I'm just saying that I don't recall what the date on this is, but that maybe we need to give people enough time to make sure that they have been able to kind of adjust their budgets if there is that sort of a adjustment, so that it's not a shock to anyone's system, so to speak.
Thank you, Senator Mitchell. I have three more members with questions. Senator Jasinski. Thank you, Madam Chair, and members, and Senator Frentz, thank you for bringing this forward. And again, I apologize, I had to leave and I missed all the testimony I wanted to hear, but I'm the lead in transportation. I was the only member there who was there today, so I did have to go there. I talked to several different members, members on this, stakeholders, police officers. I still have some concerns about the offsets, there's no doubt about that. And I think the stress it puts on someone with the unknown already having PTSD is my issue. So again, I want to make sure that we keep the fund stable. We understand the importance of that. I've been on pension, so I understand the importance of that. But affecting these law enforcement and first responders and firefighters negatively with some changes that really change their life and put them under more stress of what's going on is my concern. So I hope we can work to do that, to come up with looking at those offsets. And I know you said you're open to that, and I've been talking with stakeholders and people. So I hope we can continue on to look at those offsets to make sure that we're not putting undue stress on people having PTSD. I mean, that's the issue, and we want to make sure that these members feel they're supported, which they are. I know they are, at least by our caucus, and I think I hear from across the aisle, Senator McQuaid. I think we haven't agreed on a lot of things, but I think we agree today, so put that on the record. But I do have some concerns with the offsets and the stress that it's putting on people that are already suffering from PTSD. So that's my concern. I hope we can continue to work on that. I know, Senator Frentz, we've worked well in the past over the last 7 years, so I hope that we can come up with something that is more reasonable to our members that are under those conditions already and have to deal with what's going on with this bill. So with that, I'll leave it alone. And again, I really do apologize. I really wanted to be here for the testimony, but just could not do that. So thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members, and thanks to our police, fire, and first responders. We really do appreciate them. Thank you. Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Frentz, for the bill. Senator Frentz, 10 tell us, the $100 million that goes to the local units of government, that's intended to, those folks will have to backfill for the people who are receiving the up to 24 weeks of treatment work. Is that what it pays for? And then also it's one-time money. How long does it last?
Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Drazkowski. It's 104 of one-time money, 100 million into a new account that we're creating for the purpose of reimbursing the employers, for the purpose of reimbursing the Department of Safety, and to offset those costs. It would depend how long it lasts, how frequently you think we will see PTSD claims presented. And again, the treatment, our hope is, will reduce the number of members that are going out on duty disability. But 3 years, 4 years of one-time money is my best estimate, and I'm not an actuary. So that is a question that counties have raised in particular, saying, wait a second, these costs are going to continue for us. And for those of us that are watching the county budgets and the county levy, it's a fair point that this does not provide enough money forever and ever for this change, but one-time money.
Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So thanks, Senator Frentz. So Senator, make it clear for me anyway, what is it we're paying for with $100 million for the local units of government?
Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Drazkowski. Reimbursement of the employers of the health care costs. And just to be clear, members, the pension side of it is the para-duty disability payments. So the $60,000 tax-free, that comes out of this pension fund that everyone has a stake in. But in addition to that, the employer, city, county, has a duty, an obligation to pay ongoing health care benefits for that member until they reach normal retirement age. So that fund reimburses those costs, as well as obviously the treatment costs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Frentz.
Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My understanding, Senator Frentz, is that there's about 80 people who are kind of impacted by this offset too, which is the substantial piece. Is that accurate?
Sorry, Madam Chair.
Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator. That's a little lower,
Okay.
but, these numbers change from time to time. We have members who reach regular retirement age, and just to be clear, members of the committee, once a member of the public safety community that's out on duty disability reaches regular retirement age, their regular retirement benefits and health care stuff kick in.
And it might be wise, Senator Frentz and Ms. Linczewski, if this does become law, that the Pension Commission take a look at how things are going in the next year to do some evaluation about the status of the fund and what that means for us. That might be a wise step for the commission if this becomes law. Senator Anderson. Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Frentz, we have before us, or it was passed out a letter saying that this individual will be, according to the way the bill has been written, will be less $40,000 from what she, or he, I'm not sure who was saying. I'm wondering how many people are going to be like that are under PERA. If this is what he or they are talking about, how many will be like that, losing that kind of money? Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Anderson, and thanks for your work on the committee too, by the way. I don't have a specific number, but I have para here. To lose 40,000 would indicate a re-employment income, the money that they're earning after duty disability in the neighborhood of 90 or 100,000. So that I would guess that would be someone who had started a business, and I would guess the percentage of that is not high, but we have para here. I see Ms. Strange, Mr. Anderson. I'd be happy, Madam Chair, to have them come forward in case they have a more specific number. But in other words, someone who's duty disabled, receives the 60,000 tax-free, is able, their doctor says you can do something else. They're able to generate an income of in the neighborhood of 90 or 100,000 additional dollars per year. I see Mr. Anderson here, Madam Chair. Perhaps he has additional information to share.
Welcome
on
to
that
the committee,
senator's
Mr.
question.
Anderson, and briefly, as we have a number of bills on our agenda today. Thank you, and introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Doug Anderson, Executive Director for the Public Employees Retirement Association. And just a few notes about the 80 members or so approximately that are impacted. That's based on the 2021 reemployment earnings that we have. And so as this group has grown,
we would expect that number to grow over time. We've had over 500 new disability applicants approved in the last few years. They potentially can move into that group. In order to have a $40,000 reduction, what we've seen is of the 80 who currently have an offset 2 reduction, we did break that down into quartiles, the top 20, the next 20, the next 20, the next 20. And it's in that top group, the highest quartile of that 80, in which we see an average reduction in that group closer to about $30,000. So it'd have to be someone who has, who's earning maybe 150% to 160, 170% of what an active member is currently making in order to have that type of reduction.
Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, no specific numbers there, just a percentage that you're looking at as far as numbers of people? And because there was testimony given, why wasn't there someone from the group that's being covered by PER? Why weren't they included in part of the negotiations?
I'll take that one.
Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Anderson. I would probably characterize it a little differently. I know the testimony before you was that they were not included. My experience with the stakeholder group is that those groups like MPPOA, Minnesota Professional Firefighters, were speaking for not just the active members and the retired members, but those members of their brotherhood and sisterhood who are out on duty disability. They certainly claim to be in touch with some of them. I'll also add what you probably already know, which is that there is now a formal group, I forget the acronym, but Minnesota Duty Disabled Officers, that formed in the last 30 or 40 days, and they have been fully engaged, including Mr. Golub, who testified here today. So until that time, I don't believe they had an organization that was formal, but they were informally spoken for in those stakeholder meetings. And I can tell you one other thing, Senator Anderson, I mean, this is for all the members of the committee. The very point of the support of MPPOA and MPFF is the voice of those duty disabled members in this important respect. They know better than anybody what the job of public safety is, and they know very well what the costs and what the sacrifices that are made. So when they speak for those members who are on a duty disability, they have a certain gravitas in the stakeholder group. In other words, a firefighter knows best what it is to run into a burning building to save a stranger's child. And I think they were spoken for. I admit that was not a formal group, but it has become one in the last month. Thanks, Senator.
Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the number of people that are going to be affected is a percentage of the overall group that's being covered? Is that correct, or is there actual numbers that are statistically available?
Mr. Johnson. Sorry.
Madam Chair, Senator Anderson, yes, PERA has put out a member and fund impact statement that summarizes the number in each category that are impacted and not impacted. This is where we note 82 are impacted by offset 2, 223 impacted by offset 1. Again, that's a snapshot in time. There's another 750 disability recipients under age 55 who may move into those categories. And these are disability recipients who have been approved within the last 2 years. That we just do not have the data right now to know what reemployment earnings they may have. So they potentially can move into that category. Madam Chair, last question.
Senator Anderson.
So by passing this bill, will this help those individuals that you just mentioned have a better coverage as they go forward?
Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Anderson, when you say better coverage, they will be covered by the same offsets as are in the bill if the bill passes. So those members of the duty disability community who are not currently affected by the offsets, that means their reemployment earnings are not affected. They're not able to earn. But if they were to start to earn a year from now, 5 years from now, they would be affected by the offsets in the bill.
Senator Anderson.
I thought that was my last question. Anyway, so they will continually to be negatively impacted, the ones that you mentioned, Mr. Anderson. Whether this bill passes or not, they will. I mean, like, once the bill passes, they will have a continual negative impact on their lives as far as coverage from PERA. Am I correct in saying that? They'll have a negative impact by this bill passing on their coverage that we covered, but they'll still have a negative impact on their position as they sit in this position under PERA.
Mr. Anderson?
Madam Chair, Senator Anderson, for those that have been approved for a duty disability benefit, if this bill passes, and if their reemployment earnings are in excess of 100% of what an active member is currently making in their prior position, it will be a different offset than what is under the current law. It would be a larger offset.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Gustafson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the testifiers, too. This was really powerful testimony. It was, this is a tough topic, and, there was a lot to take in. I do want to say on the side of the caucus, too, we do support public safety. And I am honored to have Chief Swenson, who is the Chief of Police in Lionel Lakes Police Department, formerly White Bear Lake, my district. I've gotten to know him during my time in office, and this was one of the very first things he talked about when I went and met with him early on. And mostly because there is this concern to make sure that we handle it right, especially with the mental health. It is really nice to see that this establishes new treatment requirements for psychological conditions that maybe weren't in place before. And then just sort of to echo what some of the others have said around the table here too, just dealing with mental health in our communities alone would also help us support our local law enforcement and first responders, because those are some of the toughest calls that I know that they have to make. I'm, not a police officer. I support them. But when I'm, kind of unsure, I'm going to lean on people in my community like Chief Swenson to sort of let me know, what they're seeing and what they're hearing. And so I do appreciate this bill coming forward, and, hopefully we can get them the support they need and the treatment that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions? All right, Senator Frentz, the last word for you.
Thank you, members. Thanks for considering all sides of the bill. This has been brought forth after a fairly heavy stakeholder engagement. We've talked about the offsets as a concern of the duty disability community. I hear you. I'm asking for your vote to move this forward with the promise to be open-minded to things that can be brought into it, and that includes, of course, the question of targets. Obviously, with a target that was including ongoing funding, the question of the offsets might be addressed differently. And I appreciate very much Ms. Lancheski's work on this and all the other groups. And with that, I'm asking for you to pass it out of the State Government Committee. And I want to tell you, Madam Chair, I know you didn't plan on quite this much time for this particular bill, but thank you very much for indulging all the voices.
Thank you, Senator Frentz and members, and I expected that this was going to take some time, having heard the discussion in the Pension Commission.
Madam Chair,
Senator Anderson.
roll call, please.
Roll call has been requested. So Senator Mitchell moves that the language of Senate File 1959 as amended be substituted for the contents of House File 1234, so just making a substitution of, it's technical. Senator Mitchell, is that your motion? Senator Mitchell moves to recommend that House File, let's vote on that, on the substitution. So all those in favor of Senator Mitchell's motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say no. And then for the roll call, Senator Mitchell moves to recommend that House File 1234 pass and be referred to the Committee on Finance. All those in favor, the clerk will take the roll. Just the clerk will take the roll.
We're not voting on Senate File 1959?
Senator Anderson, we are,
Do we adopt the amendment?
we substituted the language that we've just adopted and put it into a House file.
So it's a
So
House.
we're moving the House file
Senate-
number, but the language that we have just debated.
Is now what? House File 1234?
Yep,
Okay.
okay.
And that's the language of Senate File 1959?
Yep.
Thank you. It's amended.
Yes, so
Thank-
I'll make the motion one more time so we're all clear. Right? So Senator Mitchell moves to recommend that House File 1234 pass and be re-referred to the Committee on Finance. And the clerk will take the roll.
Chair Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Mitchell,
Yes.
Lead Anderson,
No.
Senator Barr,
Aye.
Senator Carlson,
Aye.
Senator Swedzinski,
Yes.
Senator Drazkowski,
Aye.
Senator Fateh, Senator Gustafson,
Aye.
Senator Jazinski,
No.
Senator Coran,
Aye.
Senator Lang, Senator May-Quade,
No.
Senator Morrison.
Aye.
There being 9 ayes and 3 noes, the motion is adopted. Members, we are going to proceed with the agenda, and next is Senate file, excuse me, it's a House file, 3100, Senator Frentz. And members, as people are leaving the room, we're going to continue to work.
2950?
So Senator Frentz has 2 more bills on our agenda. We have House File 3100, which is the Omnibus Pension Finance Bill, and we have 2950, which is the policy bill. Senator Frentz, which would you like to take next?
Madam Chair, I'm happy to do either one first. I have the policy bill in my hand, which arguably would be the shorter of the 2 presentations.
Then let's take up House File 2950, which is the Omnibus Pension Policy Bill. Please proceed, Senator Frentz. And members, just so we're aware, that took a chunk of time. So it is very likely at this point, given our agenda, that we will be recessing for floor and then returning back to the hearing room to complete our agenda today. Senator Frentz.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members. I present to you the pension omnibus policy bill, which contains a few different provisions. That is House File 2950. And I believe, Madam Chair, that we have an amendment at the desk. Sorry, maybe that's for 3100. To the bill.
Yes. Senator Frentz, please proceed. And I do not believe that I have an amendment here for this proposal.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Members, the policy bill is making certain changes to pension policy. Probably the most important of them is the reduced actuarial rate of return from 7.5 to 7. You've just listened to some discussion about the health of the plans and the funding status. This means essentially that the pension funds will plan on a somewhat lower rate of return as they evaluate the pension fund and funding status. This is considered a good thing in several ways. One of them is that it shows a responsibility or fiscal conservatism, if you like, that is generally supported by the Wall Street bond evaluators. I know this is not the Finance Committee, but we borrow money as a state, and when your pension fund's actuarial assumption is lower, it tends to show that you're not predicting gains that are less likely in your investment. And although our State Board of Investment is outstanding, and although its returns have been quite good, the reduced actuarial rate of return is something that our plan directors are asking for and has a positive impact on what they charge us when we borrow money, for example, in bonding.
That's actually 3100, the next bill.
Yes, I know that. That's why I described it. All right. We have some other changes in there just briefly. There are administrative changes in Article 1 for MSRS. Senator Murphy, thank you for your work on that. This extends some time that members can purchase servicing credits. Article 2 is para-administrative changes. These are changes, of course, that para-leadership brings to us. Included in those are changing the definition of dependent child, the definitions used to determine eligibility, amend provisions regarding the credit for salary that a member would have received during a period of reduced salary for leave of absence. Article 3 members, brought by Senator Rasmussen, defined contribution plan changes, govern the defined contribution plan, permit local government officials who are appointed to participate in the plan. Article 4, service credit for 2 Metropolitan Airport police officers. This was brought by Senator Seeberger. Authorizes 2 employees of the Metropolitan Airports Commission to transfer their service credit for several months of service in 2005 from para-general to para-police and fire. Article 5 is the TRA, teachers' administrative changes, also Senator Rasmussen. Article 5 removes the specific experience criteria for hiring an executive director to expand potential pool of candidates considered for TRA board. Article 6 is St. Paul Teachers Retirement Fund, also Senator Rasmussen, allowing designation of a same-sex spouse as a survivor of members. This authorizes members of St. Paul Teachers Retirement Fund who are receiving a retirement annuity to change their annuity to a joint survivor annuity and designate a same-sex spouse as the survivor if the retiree has not been permitted to do so when same-sex marriage was not recognized under state law. Article 7, Madam Chair, you may remember Senator McEwen bill transfers from Minnesota State IRAP to TRA. This governs members primarily of State College faculty who want to transfer to TRA. Also establishes a work group. Article 8, service credit purchases for periods of military leave. This is Senator Hawj's bill. It extends the minimum time for period for purchasing service credit for periods of military leave under TRA and St. Paul teachers to 3 years. This, by the way, is the same change made to other public pension plans in 2021. Article 9, annual limit on public funds contributed to 2 multi-employer pension funds. This relates to the International Union of Operating Engineers Pension Fund, the 49ers, and also Labor's National Industrial Pension Fund. Essentially, what this means is that you can, as a public bargaining choice, give more money to the pensions of those 2 organizations. Previously, the cap was $5,000 and $7,000 respectively. Now it will be $10,000. I think you'll be hearing, Madam Chair, in the future from other groups who would like to see the amount they can bargain for. I want to extend special thanks to the operating engineers for their advocacy on that. Article 10, vesting under the para statewide volunteer firefighter plans. This amends Chapter 353G. I think we all know that governs para statewide volunteer firefighter plan to count years of service with a prior firefighter association in determining the volunteer firefighter's vested percentage. Article 11, relief association requirements after joining the para statewide volunteer firefighter plan. Members, we are encouraging the volunteer firefighter plans to join the statewide plan. Its investment returns are higher. And what this does is if a volunteer association does join the statewide plan, that we're waiving certain rules for them. This is a part of a larger discussion, but the State Board of Investment returns are quite good. And some of our volunteer plans have stayed with other investment options. And as you know, a couple percentage points of rate of return each year actually adds up to quite a bit in the long run, so that we're making it easier for those groups to choose the statewide Board of Investment plans. Article 12, the threshold for requiring Relief Association to file audited financial statements. This one has Auditor Julie Blaha written all over it. Essentially describes a higher threshold for when they must provide an audited statement, moves it from $500,000 to $750,000. And then finally, Article 13, brought by Senator Limmer, Hamel and Loretto Relief Associations, essentially allows these 2 associations to merge their assets and authorizes the executive director of para to take those assets within the statewide plan. Ms. Lincheski is here and of course will add anything to my description, Madam Chair, in case I missed anything.
Thank you, Senator Frentz. Ms. Lincheski, welcome to the committee. I know that this is the work of the Pension Commission, and with your guidance and leadership, are there things that you want to add before we take member questions?
No, Madam Chair, Senator Frentz did a very good job of doing the overview of the bill, and I have nothing to add.
All right. Members of the committee, this is the work of the Pension Commission, and they have met long and hard and have developed the bills that are before us. So It is right that it is here, part of our jurisdiction. Senator Barr, you have a question.
Yes, I do. Real quick, Madam Chair. So you mentioned an amendment. That would be mine, and it won't be offered today. Hopefully, when it goes to finance, we haven't got, Department of Corrections hasn't weighed in yet. So before we offer the amendment, just make sure everybody's cleared and on board. So hopefully you'll see that in finance on Friday then. And thank you for changing the projections from 7.5 to 5. That will make a huge difference, being more realistic. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Barr, and I think it went from 7.5 to 7. Yeah. So it's on 7.5 to 7. Making a lot of moves.
Yep.
Members, are there other questions? Well, seeing no further questions then, Senator May Quaid moves that House File 2950 be recommended to pass and be sent to general orders. Senator Barr, this is going to go straight to the floor because there are no finance implications. So if there's an amendment coming, it'll be on the floor, which is all, it's the best time. Yeah. All right, I'm going to renew this motion. Senator May Quaid moves that House File 2950 be recommended to pass and to be sent to general orders. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed say no. That motion is adopted. And let's get started with the last of the pension bills. Senator Frentz has with us now. This is the Omnibus Pension Finance Bill, House File 3100. Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members. I bring before you House File 3100, the Pension Budget Omnibus Bill. Madam Chair, I'd like to start by offering the A1, and then I have the A2 amendment to the A1.
Senator Carlson moves the A1 amendment. And Senator Frentz, did you say you have an amendment to this amendment?
Just this one.
No.
Just A1, Madam Chair.
All right, so Senator Carlson moves the A1 amendment. Are there questions? Seeing no questions, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye, and those opposed say no. That amendment is adopted. Senator Frentz?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, the Pension Budget Omnibus Bill is the result of the Pension Commission, as you know, bicameral, bipartisan. Several of the members of this committee have served on that. Thank you for that service. A couple of the highlights, we've already talked about the reduced actuarial assumption rate of return. We have a post-retirement COLA, cost of living adjustments. We have one-time funding for plans. I do have the spreadsheet, Madam Chair. I wasn't sure whether or not we wanted to go through that. I don't require it. But basically, members, one-time funding and an overall $600 million pension budget. Of that, you've just heard the PTSD duty disability, which is 104, and the rest of the one-time funding is addressed in House File 3100. How do you want to proceed here, Madam Chair? We can go through by article.
Senator Frentz, let's begin with our fiscal analyst, Mr. Erickson, walking through the spreadsheet.
I knew that. So obvious.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Senator Frentz. Members, you'll see the spreadsheet in your packets labeled 2023 Pensions Budget Omnibus, the 4/10/2023 update. I'm going to leave the top line alone for just a second and go through along the side the several blocks that describe where money is going under this bill. There is some retiree direct benefits, including a proposal for the governor's cost of living adjustment up to 2.5%. This is a one-time non-compounding benefit. There's a 1.45% cost of living adjustment for basic plan members, and you'll see that it only applies to certain of the plans. Those plans are listed across the top there under MSRS and its various plans, PARA and its plans, and then TRA and the St. Paul teachers. Moving down into the MSRS block, there is a buy down of employee contributions for 2 years, one-time cash infusion for the state patrol plan, and then some increase in direct state aids. What I want to point out on some of these is the way that the payments are being structured is a one-time state aid into the plan. So it's paying down the accrued liabilities that are in the plan, some of which are incurred through the reduction in the return of the rate of return assumption, and some of which are already unfunded existing liabilities. So these numbers that are on the page represent the amounts that are expected to accrue to those various benefit changes, with the numbers at the top representing a buy-down of those liabilities as well as any existing liabilities in the plan. Sorry if that was a little bit quick and confused, but I'm sure we can speak more to that if members have questions. Moving into the para block, this is a pay-down of general liabilities in the plan. The St. Paul Teachers does have some changes that you can see described on the left-hand side there, an age 62 and 30 years of service and buy-down of employee contributions, in addition to an increase of direct state aids, and then the TRA there with a pay-down of general liabilities. If you move to the second page, you'll see that there is an accounting for portions that are moving separately. So the first two lines there are the HF 1234, Senate File 1959, that the committee just recommended to pass a few minutes ago, with the $104 million there on the right divided into the portion that is being deposited in the one account and then the $4 million that was being transferred to para and MSRS. There's also, in the third line, a carve-out for the Secure Choice Retirement Program that is also moving separately. And then finally, there is within this bill, two other provisions, including a $5 million appropriation for para to incentivize statewide volunteer firefighter plans to join para, and then a $100,000 appropriation for actuarial costs for the LCPR. As we've talked about already, the pensions target was one time and $600 million. So these are all appropriations in fiscal year '24 and don't have any tails.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have the detailed chart is dated 4/3/2023, and I heard Mr. Erickson say 4/10/2023. I'm just wondering if there's any language difference or any numbers that have changed from that 4/3/2023 budget sheet that I have.
Mr. Erickson.
Madam Chair, Senator Anderson, I don't think so, but I'd be happy to do a quick side-by-side if I could see your copy. Or maybe Ms. Lancheski has some insight into that.
Ms. Lancheski.
No, I'm sorry. I don't remember what the change was. I'm sorry.
While Mr. Erickson is looking at the side-by-side.
Madam Chair, I don't think I see any. And here comes the new copy.
All right. All right. While Senator Anderson is conferring with Mr. Erickson and reviewing that document, Senator Frentz, if you'd like to lightly go through the articles, it would be really wonderful. We'll see if we can get this done before we leave the committee for the floor.
I would, Madam Chair. Just one moment while I confer with Ms. Lancheski. She said, oh, shoot. Madam Chair,
Senator Frentz.
I'm ready to lightly go through. Members, you've heard the highlights in the bill itself, the by article summary. The reduction in the actuarial assumption is Article 1. Article 2 is post-retirement COLA, cost of living adjustments. This includes MSRS, legislators' retirement plan, the unclassified MSRS plan, and para general. In Section 3, members, this governs the COLA and has specific descriptions of the COLA under current law and what the change would be. The funded ratio, the terms of the COLA increases is outlined in detail there. In Section 4 and 5, session laws that pay a one-time COLA. Members, as you talk to your constituents, this is part of the story of this year's one-time pension bill, one-time COLA payments, so that members who are asking you about inflation, part of what you'll be able to say is we did fund one-time COLA increases, and the reason it was not ongoing is partly that we didn't have ongoing target. So in sections 4 or 5, the COLA effect for these members is also itemized in that. In Article 3, Madam Chair, there are MSRS changes. Section 1 reduces the employee contribution to MSRS general and unclassified from 6 to 5.5. I always say pensions is where you find out just how much money 0.5% in monthly contributions really is. Section 2 reduces the number of years of service required for full vesting in MSRS from 5 to 3. for members employed after July 1st, 2023. And then sections 3 through 5 amend the expiration date for supplemental employer contributions to the correction and state patrol plan and for annual state aids to the judges plan. The expiration date in each of these was defined with reference to the funded status of the plan. So in other words, taking into account like how well is the plan doing? Chair Hurd deserves the credit for this. Essentially, you're saying where's the help most needed to raise up the funding status. Article 4 are the para changes. Section 1, the only section of Article 4 reduces the number of years of service required for full vesting from 5 to 3 for all members of para general. St. Paul Teachers Retirement Fund changes are in Article 5. Article 1 increases the employer contribution rate. Members, this is for those that represent the great city of St. Paul. Essentially took some of the one-time funding and reached an understanding of benefit changes. Article 5 basically summarizes those changes, including the increase in the employee contribution, the way that it would affect the benefits, and adds a new retirement benefit. I know you're getting emails from your constituents who are teachers asking about, hey, what about retirement age? I'd offer you St. Paul Teachers as an example of what sometimes is possible. They funded it in there, Madam Chair, and so Article 5 has that. Mr. Erickson obviously got through the appropriations in Article 6 and did an excellent job. Just calling your attention, members, as a final note to Section 3 of Article 6. This is $100,000 that Chair Hurd supports appropriating for actuarial cost assessment. And the reason I mention that is that the plans have their own actuaries. So Senator Barr's talking about the rate of return, and we rely on plan actuarial work. So a plan goes out and says, this is our actuary, this is what they say. That $100,000 allows the LCPR to have its own actuarial work, something like an independent expert that does not work for an individual plan, but works for the pension commission. And with that, Madam Chair, that is as light a run-through of a $600 million bill that I can come up with.
Thank you, Senator Frentz. Ms. Linczewski, do you have anything to add lightly? Tripping
No.
the light, fantastic.
Madam Chair, no. Senator Frentz has done a great job overseeing the bill. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Director Linczewski. Members, do you have questions? All right, then. Seeing no questions. Senator Carlson will move House File 2950 be recommended to pass. Oh, excuse me, I am, like, my things got transposed on my agenda, so I apologize for that. I will begin again. Senator Carlson moves that House File 3100 be recommended to pass as amended and be referred to the Committee on Finance. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed say no, and that motion is adopted. Thank you, Senator Frentz. All right, members, we have two more proposals before us today. We have a floor session that begins in 20 minutes. So I am going to recommend, I'm not even going to recommend, we're going to go into recess. Sorry about that for anybody who's disappointed. I don't think that we can finish one of these two bills in 20 minutes' time. I'm looking for, Senator Hurd, would you like to get your bill started? And if we can't get done, we can't get done? Would you prefer that? All right. Senator Hurd. Sorry about that. Senator Hurd,
Thank you, Chair
welcome
Murphy.
to the committee.
Thank you, Chair Murphy, and I have the A12 amendment.
Members, the A12 is going to be distributed. We don't have it yet, Senator Hurd. Thank you.
And
Can I describe this?
Madam Chair, I can describe a little bit about the A12 amendment.
Senator Hurd, will someone walk us through this amendment?
Yes, pretty much the amendment is to change the 50% to 40% and remove unclaimed price. That's pretty much it, Madam Chair.
Senator Hurd, you have a couple of witnesses with you. Would they like
Yes.
to testify?
Yes, they will testify. I'll talk a little bit about the bill as a whole, if we can adopt this amendment first, the A12 amendment.
All right, members, do you have questions on the A12? And get the bill into the shape that we want it. Seeing no questions, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye, and those opposed, the motion is adopted. Senator Hur.
Okay, Chair Murphy and members, this is the Environmental and Natural Trust Fund bill. It helps fund important projects to conserve our land, air, and water, and wildlife across the state for the last 3 decades. It's an honor for me to bring this bill before you today to reauthorize the constitutional dedication of lottery proceed to the Environment and Natural Resource Trust Fund into the future, and to create new community grants program. The fund was created in 1988 with overwhelmingly support of voters and was rededicated after a decade, and again with overwhelming support of the voters. Now it is one more time to ensure that this important resource of funding continue by putting the question before voters on the 2024 ballot. So we add the community grant to create more accessibility for communities and organizations across the state. I have a few testify here that can speak in support of this legislation, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Hur. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourselves and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. My name is Nels Paulson. I'm the Policy Director at Conservation Minnesota. We help lead a coalition of dozens of organizations who support constitutionally rededicating a portion of the state lottery proceeds into the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund. 3 times since 1988, voters have said yes, they would like to put a portion of the state lottery proceeds into the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund to supplement the state budget to specifically pay for additional activities that protect, conserve, preserve, and enhance Minnesota's air, water, land, fish, wildlife, and other natural resources. Our Renewal Coalition has been joined by over 100 local governments, nonprofits, elected leaders, and others in supporting the constitutional rededication of state lottery proceeds before the dedication expires in 2025. This bill does not alter the existing Legislative Citizen Commission on Minnesota Resources, or LCCMR, but this bill does create a new pathway for interested Minnesotans to access state lottery proceeds through the new Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund Community Grants Program. Our coalition wants to see 25 more years of dedicated state lottery funding to help maintain, enhance, and enjoy Minnesota's environment and natural resources, and we ask for your support on Senate File 2404.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Yes. Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. I'm Francisco Segovia. I am the Executive Director of Communities Organizing Power and Action for Latinos, COPAL. I am here to speak in support of Senate File 2404, especially about the need for the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund Community Grant Program as part of the renewal of the lottery dedication to the fund. We have been involved in the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund Coalition for nearly 2 years alongside other partners representing the diversity of our state. Especially, we have been engaged in the development of the community grant concept in the bill because there are worthy environmental projects that haven't been able to advance because of the barriers to accessing the LCCMR process. I believe allowing resources to be accessible to all communities that have been left out, and particularly communities of color, is important to our community because research shows that people of color are far less likely to engage in nature-based outdoor recreation activities, with historic discrimination being a large underlying factor. Most importantly, humanity is experiencing drastic climate changes that significantly impact communities of color and low-income communities. Resources from the ENRTF can help respond to challenges on a smaller, more localized scale. We believe
this community grant program that is included in the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund renewal can help fill the gaps all over the state and expand connection to and work in places that have been left out. Thank you, Senator Hur, for your leadership on this bill, and thank you, committee, for your consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. I appreciate that. I'm going to ask Mr. Erickson to walk us through the fiscal note, and then we're going to go into recess.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. The fiscal note that's in your packets will be a little bit stale based on the delete everything that's in you, but that's in the A12 that was adopted. But I think that there is enough here to be able to work with it and figure out what the cost would be. That's why you have your friendly fiscal analyst around, right? In this case, the amendment changes the allocation between the general fund and the lottery, which had been in the bill at 50-50, and changes it back to what is currently a 60-40 split. And so because of that change, we aren't going to see the number shift on the front page, where the lottery proceeds that come in are divided with a portion going to the general fund and a different expected amount going into the environmental trust fund. Without changing that allocation, we don't expect the general fund to see a loss of resources in that way. There's also potentially a cost in the bill because of the increase in the amount, in the percentage that is permitted to be used from the fund to make grants. And so there would be an increased draw from the bill on the environmental and natural trust funds fund. But with that said, both of these things are considered secondary costs because they are dependent on whether the constitutional amendment would in fact be adopted. The only actual cost would be to the Secretary of State for putting the initiative on the ballot, which is an absorbable cost. And that is it, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Erickson. I do want us to come back after recess and make sure that we've walked through the DE, just to make sure that everybody knows what's in that, and to make sure that we are clear about that and the fiscal impact. So the homework in between now and when we come back after our floor session, which I anticipate will be brief, and when we recess, we'll recess to the call of the chair. And I think that we'll go to the floor session. There might be a brief caucus, and then we'll come back. We'll come back to the amendment that we adopted and start there and see if there's any more testimony, and get you on your way, Senator Hur. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, Madam Chair, and thank you for you being very kind for putting me here as a placeholder so we can, after recess, I'll come back.
Yeah, well, it's good to get moving and have the testifiers, and I understand, Mary Robinson from the DNR, will you be able to come back this afternoon? Sure, I only need about 30 seconds, but I can do it when we come back. I would really appreciate that. Okay. Thank you very, very much for that. Members, Senator Drazkowski?
Madam Chair, can we just leave our materials here?
Yes, members, we have the room for the day, so you can leave your materials here. And we are going to recess now into the call of the chair. We will come back together early this afternoon when we finished up our work on the floor for Minnesotans. And with that, members, we are in recess.